All right, welcome back to Relatively Conscious. My name is Antonio Brown.
Irvin Bryant.
Today we're going to talk about Texas and the coronavirus in America, right? So, really, it's a microcosm, right? So, give us the overview of your theory.
Bam. Okay, so I live in Texas my whole life, and it's like the most American place in a bunch of different ways. But let's keep it Trump administration centric. So, the Trump administration is marked by the map that Trump distributes whenever he's feeling bad. Whenever he has in a bad mood, he's got to do some self-care and post this electoral map where you see all the different districts and counties and how they voted. And you'll see it as I'm doing this a bunch. Yeah. There's blue, lines on the side around the coast. That's California. That's the East Coast. And then on the major metropolitan areas, you can see like Chicago in the area around, or like Detroit or something like that. And that's where Hillary Clinton was winning. Yeah. And then in all this farming, you see all these squares and rectangles, right? Yeah. Of just flat land, prairie, whatever. Where Missouri, the city where it's not popping off, Montana and Idaho and whatever. Yeah, they're not popular places. Young people aren't there. It's not a lot of economic activity, and that's where he really killed the game. Texas is built the same way. Yes. So you got all the coast where you see Houston and the area around Houston's great area. You got 6 million people there. It's ridiculously large. Then you got what we don't have a second coast, but we have the border with Mexico. And for obvious reasons, right? Yes. Trump is not the biggest with the Mexican community. You got immigrants, people of color, and El Paso is very blue. And so that coast is blue as well. And then, boom, blips. City of Austin, city of Dallas. San Antonio is pretty close, so it kind of maps in with that, with the coastal blue line. But it's basically the same way. And then in between all those, it's just red squares, red rectangles. And this is important because in contemporary America, because that would have been true for 4 years so far. But it matters because when the coronavirus strikes, Texas being this kind of concentrated Trump area, and kind of like the country, it's still a battleground very much for his approval, is where you see the full fallout of a state and a culture, political culture buying into the Trump narrative. You see how badly that impacts us, because if you're not aware, America's the number one in the world for corona, but Texas is number one in the country, and we're just climbing.
Yeah. So if we start off at the beginning, so like March and April, right? Texas shut down pretty early, it's not shut down pretty early. The city shut down.
Yes.
Pretty second
because we believe in Confederate level states' rights, and even when it gets in the state, the city, no government. And
so Houston, Dallas, San Antonio also start to shut down end of March, beginning of April. In Dallas, there's they put out an order to shut down businesses, not essential businesses. A hair salon woman decided to open her business anyway, and then she went to jail for it. Yes. And then the governor stepped in and wrote an executive order basically saying that I'm going to control the shutdown now, because the governor was bucking that request to shut down the state. But they decided, once he saw the cities taking over, and the conservatives you can't do this, he came in.
So the cities, to be clear, decided to crack down and try to protect his citizens from the pandemic. Yeah. And he's like, no. When I say small government, I don't mean I play a lesser role. I mean you do nothing, which is what I want you to do.
Yeah. And so he lets that conservative woman go.
Yes. Ted Cruz patronizes her services by getting his haircut there. Doesn't get the virus. He just missed the wave.
Yeah. Dan Patrick paid for her bail. That's
our lieutenant governor.
Yeah. To show how we believe in the virus at the beginning, right? The numbers were low considering towards New York, how bad it was in New York, how bad it was San Francisco and LA.
Right. Yeah, at first we were fine. Yeah. First couple months.
And because of that, instead of using that time to buy into the fact there's an issue here.
Right. And bonify and structure ourselves so we're when the second wave that Dr. Fauci forecast comes, we could weather it.
Yeah. Instead, we decided not to do
that. Why do that?
So next, we get to April and May area, right?
Yes.
Dan Patrick goes on the Fox News, and this is hilarious. He says, "I would die to real tree."
And Tucker, no one reached out to me and said, as a senior citizen, are you willing to take a chance on your survival in exchange for keeping the America that all America loves for your children and grandchildren? And if that's the exchange, I'm all in. And that doesn't make me noble or brave or anything like that. I just think there are lots of grandparents out there in this country, like me, I have 6 grandchildren, that what we all care about and what we love more than anything are those children. And I want to, live smart and see through this, but I don't want the whole country to be sacrificed.
An economy.
He said, myself and my generation. He said, I think I speak for all Texans when I say of my generation, we would rather die being brave and then to cower and let the America's future that we always wanted for our grandchildren die along with it. You can't speak for me, dude. I did not vote for you.
Yeah, so I don't know what that is, right?
Yeah.
I would give a little tip. Dan Patrick is crazy.
He is.
One time he used to be a radio jockey on the radio here in Houston, and he got a vasectomy live on air.
Now, notice I said Texas is America, just smaller, because our current vice president used to be a radio guy who was wild. Also,
talked about Milan on air, talking about how he was brainwashing young women to get into combat. Wild stuff. So anyway, afterwards, the governor starts trying to open the state in phases, right?
Yes.
This is phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, right?
I was a phase 1 essential worker.
I never stopped working. But anyway, but phases aren't fast enough for the conservatives.
No.
They're like, open the dang state up now. And so by the time we get to Memorial Day, bars and restaurants are open.
Yes.
There's a couple of videos we've seen of like frat parties. Not non-frats. Not us. You know who I'm talking about.
Kappa.
Having parties and just doing the wildest stuff.
South Padre Island. Galveston. If you're from Texas, you know what I'm talking about. The party locations were lit on fire. There was a bar in Houston covered by the news. They said, despite our county judge, Lena Hidalgo, standing firm, the state would not back up her ban or her mandate for masks, mandate for social distancing, and ban on bars. The state wouldn't back her up. The city government wouldn't back her up. And the news covered the issue, and it was a Montrose bar, and they just said, we don't care. We're not going to social distance inside. The servers are wearing masks. None of our patrons have to wear masks. And we just stopped caring about the pandemic.
Also, the club opened back up. All that stuff happened, right? And so, in the end of May, the unfortunate death of George Floyd happens, right? There's Black Lives Matter protests. This is the same time that they're having all the Memorial Day activities, right? So, they're happening, around the same 2-week period.
Right.
Then June hits, and the pandemic becomes real in Texas, right?
Right.
And I think what's important to say, though, is that the pandemic doesn't hit the cities first. It hits like Big Bend National Park and like the Fort Worth area and the prairies and the Panhandle, where some counties see 100-fold increases in case number, right? So let's talk about the Black Lives Matter protests and the narrative around that.
So real fast, right? Tony, it was our very first video. You talked about you were in the Houston March to Memorialize George Floyd. And we both participated later in the Prairie View March, just as a demonstration to solidarity with Black Lives Matter. Don't forget Sandra Bland, say her name. We said, well aware, I've been wearing a mask since March 15th. I'm not about to catch this pandemic. And I said, and the narrative that doesn't get told, or the narrative that gets told, is that black people, these youth, these millennials, they choose when they want to obey the law, right? So, when it's about this political correctness and virtue signaling and fake oppression, that's what I say. Then they're willing to do it. But when it comes to our freedom, when it comes to my everyday economic activity, then you want to hush me, then you want to silence me. And it's a reverse situation. The truth of the matter is that young people, those who are allies with Black Lives Matter, black people, are choosing to disobey the law in the same way that King does, putting their lives on the line because this is like so important that if I die in doing it, it's fine.
And also people wearing masks at these protests.
We wore a mask. I wasn't, we weren't hugging each other. Like it was 100 degrees while we were marching, so we did not want to hold hands.
Also, people know the spread, as we know from science, the spread is less likely to happen outside.
Yes.
It's less likely to happen in humid areas. And also, and this is why it's key, because Dan Crenshaw went on Fox News, started talking about how it was. Well, actually, he was just on ABC 13. He talked about how it was Black Lives Matter happened at the same time. That's why.
That we caused it. Basically.
Yeah, but I mentioned the fact that the counties in the rural areas saw 100-fold increases because it is the areas where there weren't protests that got the worst issues.
Moreover, they never shut down.
Yeah.
Now, I remind you that businesses, out of concern for their workers, shut down. Yeah. And we did have a 2-month-long period where things were genuinely, for the most part, inactive, except for essential businesses, which many businesses qualified as essential businesses.
Yeah.
But in rural areas where their cities didn't mandate anything of that nature, and it was controlled by the city,
or more so counties,
and the county, right? So we have Judge Leanne Hidalgo that I mentioned earlier, who, though there was a lockdown, none of it was enforceable. You could not be arrested. So some businesses just defied and kept on going. In rural areas, Lubbock, Amarillo, any name, Burleson, if it sounds like there used to be a Klan rally there, or there may still be, then they never shut down. And so when the second wave comes, they already have a bunch of unconfirmed, asymptomatic cases, and then when the virus spreads further, it's just a total tidal wave.
Yeah. And so now we get to June. We get to the end of June until July.
Yeah.
Where the governor, seeing the business community is like, you have to shut back down because the case numbers are high. We're getting to ICU capacity. It's becoming an issue.
And people keep coming to my business without wearing a mask.
So he enforces the mask. He signs an executive order saying that you have more than 20 cases.
Governor Greg Abbott.
Governor Greg Abbott, yes. Signs an executive order saying you have more than 20 cases to wear a mask, right? But it cannot be enforced by any jail sentences, and the fine can only be up to $250. And the first thing is just a warning, right? So police officer stops me and says, "Hey, put on a mask." And that's just a warning, but there's no paper trail behind that. If an hour later, then the police officer sees me and says, "Hey, put on a mask," it's going to be the same thing over and over again, right? There's no teeth behind this. And now we sit here on July 6th, where we have cases going up in Houston.
Yes.
The governor has put in very weak measures to try to scale it. Cities and counties doing most of the heavy lifting, and we see a microcosm of what happened in the America as a whole.
Right, and so again, all of this was foreseen. 100% of this was forecast by really all experts, but Dr. Fauci, our lead expert, appointed by the executive branch, like the authority.
Also, he's worked for 6 presidents, the first one being Ronald Reagan.
He handled the AIDS crisis, right? Like, he's the guy, the epidemiologist. And every warning told us exactly that this was going to happen, almost to the date. And we ignored it. And what makes it even worse, what makes this like really abundantly clear to me, that it is, a full consequence of executive leadership, is that America is number one. We know that. That's not news. But we have, and I don't know if you're aware of this, the most robust healthcare system on the planet. We have the best doctors possible because we attract that kind of thing. Commercialism, we're the superpower, all that kind of thing. Texas, and Houston in particular, the city where we live in, Texas is number one in the country. Houston is number one in the state. And we have the Houston Medical Center with the best doctors on the planet. We have the best healthcare system of any city, bar none.
Yeah.
There's so many hospitals and such high quality healthcare available, except the fact that we want to deny, in one way or another, and I say we as Texas as a whole, the obvious facts for, I will say the bad words, political narrative. Yeah.
Also, I would say that when heads of states from other countries need hard operations, they come to Houston to get it done.
It's a fact.
So that's ridiculous that we could have stopped this from happening and did it and did not anyway. So again, it's Relatively Conscious. Antonius Brown,
Irvin Bryant.
Tweet and then respond.